Hello, friends. Welcome to Science Talk. I am your host, Jim Assa. Now, I have done quite a few videos uh, sharing with you what's going on with uh, ice around the planet, be it glacial sheet ice, ice, say, in the Himalayas, Arctic sea ice. Right, I've done a lot of videos following what's going on with the Thwaites and the Pine Island ice sheets, as well as what's going on the Ross ice sheet, etc. In generally overall, what's going on with Antarctica, and I've shared with you some the amounts of meltage that's gone on, how things are accelerating and continue to accelerate. So I'm just going to, in this short video, uh, kind of do a summation to this point in time as to what's going on. Let's start with Pine Island Glacier. It's the fastest melting glacier in Antarctica. It's responsible for about 25% of the continent's ice loss. And it's along with Thwaites, is in imminent danger of total collapse, which will then raise sea levels by a considerable amount. So, Earth is losing its ice everywhere. Between 1994 and 2017, the polar region's mountain glaciers lost a total of 28 million tons of ice. Basically 10 to the 12th, or 2.8 times 10 to the 13th. And of course, this rate of loss has been accelerating. As I have always stressed in my videos, it's the rate of loss that is of concern. Yes, there's been climate change. Yes, there's been temperature change, ice sheets growing and receding in Earth's history, but nowhere near the rate it's ongoing right now. Certainly not over since 1848 or so, basically starting the Industrial Revolution. Over the course of the 23-year survey of the planet's ice budget, there has been a 65% increase in the flow of meltwater from the glaciers, ice shelves, and ice sheets. In other words, what they're finding is that the melting is exceeding the input basically being snow that keeps and then is compacted into ice. So it's melting more than it's receiving snow, is basically what's going on. Early in the last decade of the last century, ice loss was counted at 0.8 trillion tons a year. By 2017, this had increased to 1.3 trillion tons a year. This is according to a new study in the journal The Cryosphere. And to make things even more unpleasant, 2020 has now been deemed the warmest year thus far. In fact, the last 6 years have been the sixth warmest since records began. It's as though there is a trend taking place. Researchers last year warned that the melting rate of Greenland's ice sheet, which is the largest in the Northern Hemisphere, would soon hit a 12,000-year high. A second group warned that ice loss from Antarctica would soon become irreversible. And of course, this is all verified based on the latest research looking at satellite data and so on. Although every region we studied lost ice, losses from Antarctica and Greenland ice sheets have accelerated the most. Statement by Thomas Slater of the University of Leeds in the UK, who is also the PI, principal investigator. The ice sheets are now following the worst-case climate warning scenario set out by the IPCC. Sea level rise on this scale have very serious impacts on coastal communities this century. Now, IPCC, right? We all know about how they tend to underestimate things. They don't even talk about methane, or hardly ever. So if this is the worst case scenario of the IPCC, it's probably worse, folks. Probably is. And I would venture to say that it is worse than even what the IPCC is laying out. Right? I've shared with you videos where the projected temperature increases will be probably on a scale of 5 to 7 C by 2100, with some models saying 9 to 11 C by 2100. And by the way, a 9 to 11 C temperature increase would just about melt all the ice on Antarctica. So it's probably even worse than the worst case scenario of the IPCC, is what I'm trying to say here. Scientists measured ice loss from land-based ice sheets, Greenland, Antarctica, from the shelf ice around Antarctica, and from the drifting sea ice in the Arctic and Southern Oceans, as well as the retreat of 215,000 mountain glaciers worldwide. So the Arctic Ocean lost 7.6 trillion tons, the Antarctic ice shelf 6.5 trillion tons. Now, of course, if you don't have the sea ice, that does not affect sea levels, but you now have more open water absorbing more heat. So albedo is greatly reduced. And they're absorbing more heat. Well, it's going to lead to warmer conditions everywhere. Because, as I discussed with you before, open water will absorb the heat. That heat is retained. So until it cools down sufficiently, that's why ice forms later in the year. But also there is still a latent heat from meters down the water column, so that ice melts earlier in the year. And with the loss of multi-year sea ice, that's where the loss of albedo takes place. Because even if you have 1 year, maybe 2-year-old ice, the ice is pretty translucent, so some heat energy still penetrates through the ice to get into the water. Not all of it, but certainly not much is reflected back out. It's when you get the older ice that it turns into more opaque, so that you increase the albedo. So we're basically heating up the Arctic Ocean, and that's going to give us the BOE, but that's going to give us just massive global warming all over. So let's see, to continue some other data here. Ice losses from land, 6.1 trillion tons from mountain glaciers, 3.8 trillion tons from Greenland ice sheet, 2.5 trillion tons from the Antarctica surface, which right now can raise sea levels by 3.5 centimeters. So basically, these scientists basically say they put a statement. There's little doubt that the vast majority of Earth's ice loss is a direct consequence of climate warming, i.e., human activities. So there you have it. This is a summary of how much ice has been lost to date. Looking at whether it's the sea ice, Greenland, Antarctica, alpine glaciers, what have you. It's all they're disappearing. It's all disappearing, and this is going to have very bad consequences for us. Not only, especially the alpine glaciers, for example, a lot of communities and societies there rely on that slow meltwater from the snowpack during the course of the spring and summertime for drinking water, replenish any reservoir, irrigation for growing crops. You start losing that alpine glacier, which is happening, those necessities are put at risk. So it's only going to get worse. Sorry, it is like I can't sugarcoat this. It's only going to get worse. So stay tuned. As always, I'll keep you updated with the latest data and so forth. Thank you for your time. Hello, folks. This is Jim here with Science Talk, asking you to please subscribe to my channel and to inform others of my channel and of the work that I do. Please share to social media platforms that you use. Also, as a reminder, don't forget to click the bell so that you know when I load up more videos. Finally, I ask that you support the work that I do by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your support.